Welcome back to another episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. And today we're virtually in Texas with Ms. Becky. Ms. Becky, what organization? Actually, what university are you a part of? Not even organization.
That's right. The University of Texas, Permian Basin.
Love it. How long you been there?
I've been here 7 years.
So 7 years, a long time, almost a decade here. Okay, you're just shy away from that. What brings you into the higher ed space? I mean, such a passionate, purpose filled role. You're still working with the kids. Did you ever? I actually have this question. Did you ever leave college? So many people get to college, just never leave. Is that what happened to you?
I've never left. I often tell the story that I set foot on a college campus in the fall of 1990, and I thought college was the coolest place I'd ever been. Now, I tell people I'd been really nowhere and seen nothing, but I still thought it was the coolest place I'd ever been. And I've never left a college campus since then. And I will tell you, all these years later, I still think a college campus is the coolest place I've ever been.
Why? Why was it so cool? How did it change your life?
Yeah, it was the first real time I was in an environment where everything and everybody around me was dedicated towards really building towards something for your future. Everybody was trying to become better. Everybody was trying to develop themselves. And everybody really understood that you could try lots of things to really expand who you were and how you see the world. And college campuses are hope-filled places. And I would still say that's true after all these years. I often tell colleagues who don't work in higher ed, who work out in the community, if they're having a bad day, let me take you to lunch in the college cafeteria because there's nothing like a slice of pizza from the pizza oven and seeing people who are spending their time deliberately working on improving themselves so they can serve their communities better. That'll make you feel great about the future.
I love that. And what is your role currently, and where did you start off? Are you still in the same role that you started off so many years ago?
Yeah, my role's evolved here. I'm the senior vice president for student affairs and enrollment management. So my suite of responsibilities starts with, hello, can I help you come to college? All the enrollment functions. While students are here, we support them academically, we support them in their development and in their student experiences. And then we have teams that work with folks when they're graduating. And so we end with, can we help you find a job? And all the things that happen in between, we get to work on with students along their journey. I came here as the vice president for student affairs. My portfolio has expanded. So I've done a wide variety of things in my 7 years here at UTPB.
What is the end goal? Do you have an end goal in mind, or you just kind of seeing where the wind blows?
Yeah, I would love to be a university president someday. I think college has been life-changing for me personally and in all the work I've done over the course of my career. I think very young Becky, when I was an undergraduate, even back then said, I'd like to be a college president someday. I know a lot more about what a college president does, but after more than 30 years, working or being in college campuses, I feel equally passionate about the opportunity to continue to serve.
30 years in total, Becky?
Well, I guess, I mean, if you count, um, my first full-time job was in 1996, so that's, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow,
I think I've
time
been
is
on a
flying
campus
by.
even longer, and so, yeah.
Times have changed, I hear, especially in the sense of parents being more involved on the just decisions, right? Going more on these campus tours. How are we as a university and colleges? How are we also navigating that change where we know now we're not just speaking to the child, but we're actually speaking to the family to make these
Yeah.
decisions?
Gosh, you're so right. I have seen a real journey and change on the involvement of parents from my own experience all the way through all my years of higher ed. I've worked at 7 universities across Texas and Tennessee, many of them in the middle part of my career, private institutions, which tends to have a different student profile, a different level of parental involvement. And so I've seen a wide variety of shift there. Here at UTPB, we really understand and believe that the whole family unit is part of this decision and the investment to support somebody who's going to college. And so we think it's really important to make sure that we're working with whole families and system units. And one of the things that we really love is that often then turns this into a family affair. I can't tell you how many times we've started with a student only to ultimately recruit a parent. We've had several graduation moments where we've had parents and their children graduating together, or one after the other. And that's our ultimate goal, right? Is to really change the outcomes of people's lives through college education. And so when we can do that for whole individuals and whole families, that's a great day.
No, for sure. Were you a first gen student?
I sure was first in my family to go to school. My
What's the
grandmother, who made it to 99, died last year, was maybe my most proud supporter and just thrilled to have a doctor in the house to go from first generation all the way through a PhD. Nobody was prouder to call me Dr. Spurlock than her.
I love it. I mean, lived a long life, 99 years. I'm hoping to see those numbers as well.
Yeah, me too.
Um, yeah, we got to take care of ourselves. When you think about being a first gen student, and going to college, was it always I want to get that PhD, or was it just being on the campus that just kind of led you to that PhD?
Yeah. No, I think I was a typical first gen student. I don't even think I knew what a PhD was. I don't think I knew what a master's degree was. I'm not sure I even understood basic career paths. I often tell people when I went to school, I sort of understood you as a woman at that time. I thought my choices were, teacher, maybe nurse. I didn't really understand a full suite of options. And military. I grew up in a military family, so I sort of understood, although knew that probably wasn't for me. Um, I look back now and think I would have made a great attorney. I didn't understand what an attorney was, or what a pathway to get there was. I'm not disappointed at all with my career choices, but very typical first gen. I did not have a real deep understanding of that, but I did fall in love with college, the experience for myself, and the impact I believed that you could make system wide in individuals on the campus and the communities that colleges are situated in. And so I came to understand very, very early on in my college career that a master's degree would be necessary for entry to that. So I did go straight into a master's program at my same undergraduate institution. And then it was a few years later, when mentors and others said, if you're serious about making this a career and you want to be at a senior level, an advanced degree is going to be required, and that's really how that unfolded for me. But no, it was not an early dream. I don't think I could have told you what a PhD was.
Hey, you're here now though, and knocking out the park. And it's always cool to just see those that may not have known, but because of, as we talked about, university and people that were mentoring you probably along the ways. There was teachers, there was counselors that would really navigate you maybe through some of those hard times. What are some of the challenges that students are facing today that maybe people are not even aware of?
Such a great question. I think for many people, the picture they have in mind about college doesn't match the reality of college anymore. So I think for many people, we talk about college and they think of an Ivy lined campus where students go to school for 4 years. They live on campus. College is their main priority, right? Maybe they're having the best years of their life. They're partying, they're having fun. I think that's still what so many people think of. That's actually not the majority of the experience for students in the United States. And it certainly isn't for our students here at UTPB. The vast majority of students today that are in college are working half time or greater. They often are taking care of their family of origin, or they have a family of their own. They're working professionals. They're Even if they're very young or right out of college, college might be on the list, but might not be the number one thing on their list. They're juggling a lot. And so consequently, college has to fit into their life. It's not for many students, their singular and only focus. And so it's important to really adapt to meet the needs of a wide variety of learners and make sure that people can access college and make it affordable and available regardless of whether it's you have the ability to focus on it just full time.
And that kind of, I guess, brings me to the virtual. Are you seeing a lot more people doing virtual classes these days?
Yeah, UTPB was very early into the online learning space, well before COVID. And so we were really well situated there, but we have a significant number of our students that are fully online, and we continue to see interest in that grow, both students that want to be in a fully online program, but even if they don't do a fully online program, they often want the flexibility of being able to take a mix of in-person and online classes, which is something that's really different. I see that, by the way, even at institutions that have far more traditional populations. I think just the flexibility of being able to navigate learning in a variety of contexts and fit in all the things of your life, that continues to grow.
Oh yeah, I was definitely that kind of wherever I could take a online class, I wanted to take the online class. However, not every class was online, so then you had to go in person.
That's
But
right.
I've always appreciated it. I think the only thing that got me sometimes was the communication, right? Having to get something answered and then having to wait some time. What does it look like? I also remember going into like a I don't know if it's like this anymore. It's just some time, but whenever I needed answers, I'll go into, I guess, the student service area, and you have to wait in line, and it's like
Yeah.
an hour, and sometimes you just don't have the time because you are working that 9 to 5. Has
Yes.
those type of things actually, been, addressed, adjusted?
I love that. Yes, we meet students where they are here at UTBB, and I think a lot of colleges work on that too. So, for example, we opened this last year a brand new one-stop shop, right? A physical desk located in a high traffic area where students can come and get a wide variety of questions answered in one space. And that's great. But guess what? We offer the same service virtually. And that's important, right? When we built a physical space, but we built a corresponding tech support item, right? So that students can also get in line virtually. And so that they also are queued up in addition to the people in the in-person space to be able to get their questions answered. And that's a good example of making sure that we're meeting students where they are, because it doesn't make sense to be able to force an online student to have to operate online except for when they really need help. And we've really addressed that in a wide variety of areas, making sure our counseling services have virtual options, for example, making sure our career service programs, if you need a resume, right, you can come in and get help. But guess what? We take virtual appointments too. And we have a lot of programs available online where students can go through self paced work so that if they want to do that late night, one night, that works for them too.
I love that. Yeah, meeting someone where they're at is so important. I always go back to if you look at anybody's Amazon playlist, Spotify, Netflix is really curated for them. And it's like, how do we find and curate that experience for our own students? Because that's just kind of the mindset that the next generation is. It's like it has to happen now, the answers. So it's great that you guys put that desk in a high traffic area, right? Because that's probably when they really have that question and now they can actually make that pit stop to just get that question answered. Really
Right.
different times, but I want to take you off of just this education space. Let's go into Becky outside of the education space. What is she doing? What is that thing that when she turns off, she loves to do, brings her peace?
Yeah, well, there are 2 things. I love to travel. I grew up in a really small town. I always joke that if I wrote a book, it would be called Small Town, No Car. I didn't have a car for a long time and had to, spend my days walking the streets or negotiating or navigating how to get around for a lot of my young life and then well into my 20s. Um, and so, as a first generation college student, as somebody who even started out working in education, I didn't make a lot of money. Travel was just not something that I had experienced. And as I got into my 30s and then into my 40s, I really wanted to explore the world. And so I love to travel. I've just come back from 12 days in Japan, with my son who
Okay.
graduated high school this year. So young, when I look back on young Becky, I think she couldn't have imagined that this Becky would go to Japan for 12 days, for example. Um, so I love to travel and I love all kinds of travel. I love international travel, but I love local travel. And if I'm going somewhere in the US for a meeting, I want to learn about that city. I want to try new foods. I want to see the architecture. I want to understand how this place came to be. I just really love everything about that. And then I'm an avid and voracious reader. And so I just love books. And I probably read pretty consistently at least a book a week is I would say a reasonable average and sometimes more.
What? That's so good. Traveling, was Japan on your bucket list?
It was not actually. My son graduated high school, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to travel, and Japan was his choice. And so I was really like, okay, well, let's do this. I ended up loving it. I would absolutely go back. Um, we're a family of 4. I have a daughter that graduated college this year and a son that graduated high school. And we've traveled a lot as a family. But one of the things we've also done is travel in pairs. So just like most families, my kids have different interests. And so I've really loved traveling with them individually as well as us collectively as a family. So this was just a mom and son trip, just the two of us, to Japan, which made it really even more special.
It's funny you say that. Today, I'm going to Boston next week, for my brother's wedding, and I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I said, "You know what? I should ask my wife if I could take the 5-year-old, right? Because you still gotta ask your wife, you can't just take your child." And she started to, like, freak out. Mind you, we just haven't had that, right? She's been a stay-at-home mom 24/7, and she's like, "Wait a minute, we haven't even traveled together as a family. We haven't even done this. You haven't even taken her to just a basketball, like, we had to start small." So how
Probably I can remember taking my daughter with me. I surprised her and took her to Harry Potter World, I think when she was probably 8. And I had a conference and I thought, you know what, I could just bring this kid along and I trained my kids to fly on their own really early. I think
really?
probably by the time they were 6 or 7, right? So I'd put them on a plane to grandma and they would sort of, a direct flight and here's how you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
do that. And um, so I was like, look, we can fly down together and then I can fly you back on your own. And 'cause I had to go to work, right? But we came early, and I remember surprising her after school and taking her to Harry Potter World, and she was probably 8 or 9. I had the opportunity to go to the Middle East quite a number of years ago to do some work, and I thought, why wouldn't I take a child with me? Our son was a little bit, I thought, too young for that, but brought our daughter, who I think was in 5th or 6th grade at the time, with me on that trip. So, we started early. I think really this idea that we were gonna go out into the world and do things. And I had kids a little later in life, and so my philosophy has also been, I'm not waiting for some mythical point in the future, right? When maybe I have more money or more time to start doing the things I wanna love. And so I've got to figure out how to do them now and fit them into my life. And that has absolutely been our approach and philosophy the whole time.
Hell yeah, I love the way you think. And Becky, when you talk about just the traveling, like, what is on the bucket list? Japan wasn't it, but is there something that you really wanna go see?
Gosh, it's interesting. I don't know if I don't know if I keep a bucket list when it comes to travel. I think I'm always just thinking what sounds like the next adventure, what's the next opportunity. We went to Italy last year to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. Um, I do think I'd like to go to Bali or some place like that. I think because I've had 2 children graduating from college this year, that's really, for anybody that's been through that, it really takes up so much of your brain space. And I'm transitioning to now being an empty nester, right, with my husband who I've been married to for a long time. And so we've really dedicated our energy and focus to that, to launching these 2 kids at these 2 important inflection points in their life. And there's been a lot going on in my career, which I've loved too. So I think it's been a year of questions for me, questions of what do I want the next phase of my life to look like? What does it look like to transition as a parent? What does it look like to change my schedule? What does it look like to take really good care of myself so I can travel and do all the adventurous things I want to do in the next season of life? I'm not sure I have answers sorted out yet, but I've really enjoyed asking the questions this year.
I love that. I was actually just talking to another leader. He said he's taking the next 6 months off from work to really take care of his health, to figure out where the wind is going to blow him to next because he's been in the space for the last 20 years. And he's like, so a friend told him that. So he's like, you know what, Ephraim? I think he's in his 60s now. He says, it's time for me to just kind of take that time and figure out where my heart takes me. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you really do got to, step away and figure out what is that next thing. I mean, for you, you said president. So and I love that you said that actually, because it's something else you mentioned earlier. I forgot what it was, but is man, what was the other thing you said? I love that is in your brain and that you say it out loud. I'm a big speak it into existence and that
Yeah.
you've just had this feeling to say, I want to do that, I want to do that, and you do it. Like not many people do that. They think it's impossible, but because it comes to your mind, I know that you live it, and you just that's how you
Yeah.
probably where the work ethic comes from, right? Doing this for as long as you have as well is because you know it's been planted in your heart. That must mean it's real, right? I just got to go get there. I can't give up now.
It's interesting. I will say, I often think that maybe one of the best things that happened to me as a first generation college student, somebody who was lived on my own very early, right? I had a unusual childhood and started really living on my own when I was in high school. And I often say, thank goodness I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I just bebopped along. I mean, I just thought, I looked around and said, What are you doing? I bet I could do that too. Or I love to read. And so I was like, I'll just read everything I can about this. And I never had the sense that I think I was born with a double helping of agency, right? I always felt like I could steer my own ship. Um, and then my circumstances really required me to be so grown up and do things really ahead of my peers. So I had that was hard, but I also had a great sense that I was capable of figuring things out and and that I wasn't afraid of risk. I wasn't afraid. I knew I could work hard. I thought I used to think you just can't outwork me. You know, you might outsmart me, you might have more resources, you might have more connections, but you can't outwork me. And and I didn't know. I never thought, well, I'm a poor kid. I can't do that. Or I don't have the support. I can't do that. I would just go about doing it. And I think while things have really dramatically shifted in my life, right, as a result of all my career choices and the investments I've made, I still wake up every day really feeling like the captain of my ship. And consequently, that is lingering in my body, this idea that I don't know, but I know I can figure it out.
That's my mindset on everything is I'll figure it out. Like I've taken so many leaps of faith and I was like, I'll figure it out. God got me because it is, right? Like you mentioned, I think we were able to share our experiences as we were growing up and what that actually looked like. But that trauma that, I just want to be better than my past. I just want to sometimes they what they call it, the chip on your shoulder, the grit. Yeah, that's what leads you to these opportunities as well, Becky. And to be able to travel the world and is because you've never given up and you were just going to figure it out. Right. That's what life is all about. To this day, are you still figuring it out, Becky?
I am still figuring it out, and I think and isn't that
Yeah.
fun? You said something earlier, and I often say to my family and others, I have a plan, and I obviously have worked I'm very goal oriented, that's very clear, and I've worked towards those goals, but I like to leave room for Jesus because I think, you know, I've experienced dreams that are even bigger than the ones that I imagined, right? Because you can't just say, "Well, I've got a 12-step plan and I'm gonna work it." So tightly that this is the only way this can go. Thank goodness, because the dreams that have been dreamed for me are even bigger. And when you leave room and space for those to also bubble up, that's really where the magic happens, right? You have to do your part. You have to do the good work and you have to work hard and you have to be diligent and be committed. And you have to leave room for the ways in which life will surprise you. And I think as I'm entering into the last, phase of my career, you could get sort of jaded, like, "I've done this, I understand, here's what that's gonna look like." That's sad to me. I don't want to be like that. I want to still be delighted and find joy and find exciting connections I couldn't dream of. And I believe that that's still coming for me on the path, even after 30 years in this career.
Yeah, you think you had a plan until God's plan reveals itself. You're like, "Oh, wow, I was thinking too small." We think big until that God's plan shows up. You're like, "I've never would have imagined this." So, yeah, for sure, there's definitely so much. I actually wanna kinda go back. You mentioned that your son is now in the space of graduating. Will he be also attending college?
He sure will. My daughter just graduated in May from college, and my son is headed off to college.
So what does that look like for you being in that seat, but probably having to do college tours and seeing things from the outside perspective? Are you seeing anything new or anything like that?
I sure am. Boy, it's been really I we have orientation here over the summer and I talk to parents and I always say nothing's been more humbling than doing this professionally for a living and then doing it with one of your children and seeing it 100% through their eyes or through your parent eyes. And uh I've had a lot of lessons. A lot of inspiration I found at other campuses where I thought they did something well or where I thought, "Oh, this seems really not well done." And then,
Yeah.
are we doing that? I remember calling my team from one of the tours and saying, "We're not doing that right. Can somebody double check? We're not. This is not how this is set up on our campus." Because it was something I thought really didn't was not in service to the people. And so, absolutely, I think it is a great quality check on what you think you know and what you think you're doing, and then how you really experience it when it comes to your own beloveds.
Yeah, I can only imagine that sometimes you're so in that consistent, okay, this is my job, kind of almost comfortable at times, but then you go see someone else do something. You're like, as you mentioned, before I even start to say anything, is this what we're doing or not? Because I have a lot of things to say if this is the case, but also a lot of things to really learn from as well, because sometimes you need to be on the outside to really see things. What are the things that maybe loved and learned and you're really ready to implement maybe at your school?
Yeah. I saw some really great presentations that really incorporated clear, um, understanding and connection of academic opportunities with career development and student experiences. So, yes, this is the academic program and the real richness that you're going to get, but also here's all the ways we're going to develop you through internships or student leadership experiences. And I saw one college in particular stuck out to me as really just doing a phenomenal job at the integration of that and then the delivery of that information to both students and their families. And I took a lot of inspiration from that particular campus visit. Um, you know, I think I've probably taken more moments of thinking, oh, this is harder than it has to be. This is harder
Yeah.
than it has to be. And I often have the experience where I look at something and I think, I'm not sure if I know exactly what this means. And this is what I do professionally for a living. So if
Yeah.
I'm questioning it, what does that mean for families who might be less experienced
Yep.
than I am? And so, again, it's really helped us continue. We're already on this journey at UTPB, but we really continue to think about um, real accessibility and affordability, and what does it mean like to make those real commitments in tangible ways, not just lip service, not just these are our values. We already have that, right? But what are the actual tangible things that you can do? So, are we producing letters in English and Spanish? Are we really considering our language and is it filled with jargon? As it often sometimes has to be. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's we're required to be, but how could we improve that? How can we simplify? How can we involve this year we added some really new parent communications that I'm very proud of, particularly all around the financial commitments to really help families feel like they understand. How can we get to a simpler number to help people understand how what is it going to cost? And how can I break that down and understand that the same way I would understand buying a car or my monthly bills? And if you've ever looked at a higher education bill, they're more complicated than that. And for good reasons.
That
There's some
yeah.
regulatory reasons and there's some systems I mean, there are lots of reasons why it's more complicated. And what can we do better? How can we really change? If you're really committed to saying we want to make a college degree accessible and affordable to people, particularly who've historically not chosen that path, you cannot do things the way they've always been done.
That is true. I think sometimes you don't have to reinvent it, but you just have to tweak it, right? And just make it that much better. As we start to wrap up, I loved that we're in leadership positions, and I know you're pouring into people, and you have your things that you may tell people, to motivate them, and we'll definitely want to hear one of those. But what is that thing that maybe someone said to you, whether it's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that still resonates, that you just still kind of live by that saying?
Yeah. I was thinking the other day about my one of my major advisors in my doctoral program, Stan Carpenter. And took me a long time to finish a PhD. I worked full time the whole time. I had two children. I mean, I just took me 9 years. And when I was at the very end of it, I tried to quit. And I just felt overwhelmed and exhausted and had a newborn and my advisor, I called him to sort of workshop, like, I think I'm gonna quit. And he said, you're asking me for permission and I'm not gonna give it to you. And he said, "You can't see it, but you're so close." Now, keep in mind, at this point, I'd already done the literature review and I'd already collected the data. I mean, he was right. I was really close to finishing. But sometimes it's the last mile, right? And he said, "You're so close, and I can't tell you all the ways this is gonna change your life, but it is gonna change your life." And of course, he was right. And I got together, found some additional support and help. And about 6 months later, was able to finish. I was that close. And of course, he's right. It has changed my life in innumerable ways. And I was just thinking about him the other day. I'm going to go visit him. I haven't seen him in a little bit, and it was such a powerful moment. That I think too. I think at the time, if I had quit, everybody would have said yes. Of course, look, she's a mom. She's a new mom. She's taking care of these kids. She's working full time. Everybody would have understood. But he was like, "I'm not letting you off the hook. Like, stop if you want, but no permission's coming from me. Let's
Yeah.
talk about what it looks like to finish and change your life."
Those are good people. I always say a person could really change a life, a moment or a story. And there's those people that just say, hey, you're so close. But you are right. There's people that may not, that would easily tell you, just stop, just give up. Like if,
We understand.
but
It's a lot.
yeah, you need those good people that say, no, you're there, because a lot of the times, Becky, I can only imagine that we feel like we're in this dark tunnel and we
Yes,
just can't see the light.
that's
Right?
right. Yeah.
And when someone says, "No, keep going, the light is coming," you're like, "Oh, okay," and you just keep going and you realize, "Man, God is so good." Going back to, bring it back, God is so good. Because if I would've quit, I've never seen the day of light, I would never seen the finish line. And what are some of the things you're telling others now as you're pouring into them
Yeah.
as a leader?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I tell all students at orientation every year is I say, "Don't suffer in silence." That I think your job as a student is that things are gonna go wrong, and when they do, your job is to tell somebody. And I think increasingly we live in a world where people wanna know the answer to the question before they ask it. They Google the answer before they go to the doctor, right? They
Yeah.
really we've lived in a place where increasingly people are uncomfortable with uncertainty, right? Or this idea, so we need to know. So people will say, "Well, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't think there was anything you could do about it. I didn't think the college could help me with that." And I said, "That's not your responsibility is not what we're going to do. Your responsibility is to tell somebody, 'Hey, this isn't going right. I need help.' And then let us see what we can do." I said, "Students are so often surprised by how many resources we have to help them and how much we can do to really keep them on the path." And to your point, I think if you're in a hole or you're in a dark place, sometimes it can be so hard to feel like, and we look around and we go, I don't know if anybody can help me, so I just keep it to myself. No, tell somebody, reach out. And we tell them too here at UTBB, there's no wrong front door to help. So you don't have to even tell the right person. Just tell somebody, tell a coach, tell a faculty member, tell somebody in housing, tell the ladies that work in the cafeteria. And it's our job to get that information to the right person to help you. Okay. Um, but just tell somebody.
Closed mouth never get fed. So many times by just saying something that I wanted to do, and next thing you know, I end up in somebody else's office. You are 100% right, Becky. Just tell somebody because you just never know who can really help. Becky, as we start to wind this down, where can people? What's the website? What's your LinkedIn? Are you guys on social? So they want to see what the school is about and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, of course. Well, we're easy to find it. We're utpb.edu and we're at UTPB on our socials. And you should check us out. We're really a gem of a university here in the Permian Basin, which is really the epicenter of oil and gas industry and what we're doing to produce energy for Texas and the United States and North America and the world. And we're a scrappy, small institution that is producing big results. And I think what we're doing every day is really unique. And I think if you look at our socials in particular, you'll see a lot of our personality and the success stories about what we're doing out here in UTBB. And I think it'd be hard not to find inspiration if you took a look there. I'm easy to find on the internet. I'm all over the internet and easy to find on LinkedIn. Dr. Becky Spurlock.
Well, Dr. Becky, I appreciate you so much. I didn't say that the whole time, but Dr. Becky sounds good,
Oh,
actually. We appreciate your time here. Guys, if you guys are still watching, these are the conversation that we have with leaders just like yourself that are really making a difference, that are chasing their passion and purpose. So continue to just share the word because we're not in this alone. The more that we continue to have these conversations, the more that students, the more that leaders continue to be educated around what is actually happening on a day to day around the world. My name is Efrain. This is Becky. We'll catch you on the next one. Latest.
thanks. Bye.